Very good. Welcome back. It's now 2 minutes past 7 a.m. Karibu sana to the program. My name is Victor Lo. Please talk to us on 0707-303-212. Today being the 4th of August 2026, being a Tuesday, we get into the political arena, that is people and politics. And before we get into that, allow me to take you through the front page of the newspapers. Okay, on the front page of the Daily Nation reports that here we have Shah mystery, farm paid 1.2 billion shillings. Shah mystery farm paid 1.2 billion shillings. All right. The Daily Nation says that the uproar by hospitals over a 2% deduction from their total claims paid by the Social Health Authority, that is Shah, is now the subject of a court case with petitioners seeking orders to halt the controversial charges by a private firm. Documents filed in court by 3 petitioners who have named Health Cabinet Secretary Eden Duale among the respondents by the virtue of his office state that Finprint Limited had received 1.2 billion shillings by July 1st, 2026. Official records show the firm, incorporated on July 12th, 2020, has 2 directors and another company whose address is not provided as its controlling shareholder. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. And now petitioners say that the government has ignored queries on the deductions. Okay. The story continues on the inner pages of the Daily Nation. Still here, a bit of some politics. Uhuru's Azimio reaches out to Gachagua and Sifuna comes. Yeah, politics. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday chaired a meeting of the Azimio Council, which approved the incorporation of 3 new parties into the coalition. The meeting also resolved to initiate talks with Rigathi Gachagua's party and Linda Mwananchi, all associated with the Nairobi Senator. Not all, but actually Linda Mwananchi associated with Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna. That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. On the front page of the Star, the Star says that Kenya leads Africa in milk yield as meat exports rise by 85%. All right, Kenya leads Africa in milk yield as meat exports rise by 87%. Okay, which is good news for us. Egypt relegated to 2nd place. Dairy exports have also tripled. Okay, you can take a look at that story. And finally, on the front page of the Standard says that 2 words, Grand Coalition. It's as simple as that, Grand Coalition. And it's more or less the same thing that is also reported on the Daily Nation. That is a Grand Coalition. And the 2 ladies and the other gentleman on the front page of the Standard. And the main man here is former President Uhuru Kenyatta. All right. The Standard reports that, is it a Grand Coalition in the making? So a meeting convened by former President Uhuru Kenyatta and held at Wiper Kalonzo Musyoka's SKM Command Center yesterday bore the hallmarks of a grand opposition coalition that is taking shape ahead of next year's general election. After admitting 3 new parties into the Azimio la Umoja coalition and opening its doors to more like-minded outfits, the Uhuru-led coalition has also stepped up efforts to broaden its national support. While with Edwin Sifuna's Linda Mwananchi and Rigathi Gachagua's DCP among those being quoted. The drive to field a united front and make President William Ruto a one-term leader is gathering momentum, evoking memories of the NARC wave that swept to power in 2002. And talk of 2002, today I want us to walk down memory lane 16 years ago. And the 4 great gentlemen who are on set were there, and I'm so sure they actively got involved. on that fourth day of August. Alex Manyasi, were you involved? Are you? Okay, on 4th of August 2010, Kenyans went to the ballot and we voted for the new constitution that we are enjoying today. Exactly a day like this. That is 16 years ago. And 67% of Kenyans voted for the new constitution that we have today. And now we are here, you know, several years later, we are still grappling with some of the you know, bits of the constitution which have not been fully implemented. Some are actually operationalized. So today, let's go back down the memory lane and let's talk about just the culture of having our constitution fully implemented, even as the president is also talking about the Vision 2060, gentlemen. We all know that. And first of all, allow me to welcome all of them. Gibson Gesore, karibu sana. He's an advocate of the High Court, not new to Jerusalem. Karibu. All right. And Onyangolo, who is my namesake, karibu sana.
Asante sana.
He is the party leader, Party Freedom and Opportunity Party, POP. Kevin Osido, Executive Director of County Governors Watch. I call him Kevo. Karibu sana.
Shukran sana.
Good to see you.
Asante.
And Alex Manyasi, Policy Engagement Manager at PAPHRC. Alex, karibu.
Asante sana.
Let me start with you, Alex, now that you're the last one to speak. 16 years ago, what do you remember on that day?
Machungwa na ndizi.
So, clearly, yes. Machungwa na ndizi.
So that was probably the highlight of the time.
Yes.
And of course, yes and no. And I think some of the slogans being used today as to whether you are for or against, some of them started way back. But during the constitution making process, I think what was very clear was that some people were perceived to be against and others were perceived to be for the constitution. And one of the mistakes was some people thought that those who were for the constitution were pro-democracy and therefore were for the people of Kenya.
Yes.
But all of us know that the president today, for example, who was in the no camp, is the president. And the people that led the constitutional making process to where we are, most of them, actually all of them, have never held power. So sometimes the way we look at things is different from how things turn out, ultimately. And Kenyans are not tied to what you have done today. Sometimes you lead, like those who led the yes camp, Kenyans never gave them a chance to also lead the country as well. Yeah, someone could talk about Kibaki, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay. Kevin, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm wondering why Alex is not sure about Kibaki, because he was a president at that point in time, and I believe that for some of these processes, Victor, you need a vision bearer. And you need somebody who is able to rally the mindsets and even the attitudes of the people. And so the referendum at that point in time, in my view, looked at a point when Kenyans were beginning a new journey. And especially because the campaigns that rallied around the constitutional review process, which if you probably get back, you realize that Kenyans were galvanizing around change. So from 1997, the political processes, IPPG, ETC, we get into 2002, we get into the worst electoral process, 2007, 2008, Kenya is burning. And all these things are happening when we are being told that the foundation is shaking.
Yes.
And there were lots of references, therefore, to the 1963-64 Constitution, which people thought that probably was not responsive to our political and even economic context. So 2010 happens, and Kenyans are given a moment to now make a choice. And I think that, as you said when we began this conversation, most of us were there. And I voted for the Constitution. So, Victor, President Mwai Kibaki, in my view, together with Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga, presented the face, therefore, to be able to, rally Kenyans around a process that ultimately takes us to where we are. And post the 4th of August, one photo that I continuously think about is the one that is even on this particular document called the Constitution. And President Moi Kibaki is there, holding that document, you know, upon its ratification.
That's as the Uhuru Park.
Yeah, at Uhuru Park. And even if you look at, therefore, how Kenyans continued to rally around leaders that therefore would give them an opportunity to decide the kind of future which they wanted. So, as Alex is not sure about President Mwai Kibaki, I think for me, the gentleman, may God rest his soul in eternal peace, together with Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga, Joey, they presented the face, therefore, of that change. And you realize that Kenyans, post-2002 election, when Kenyans thought that now they were taking back the country after President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Sadly, I think that many years down the line, as you say, 16 years, a lot of those things have not been achieved. The aspirations that I think the two gentlemen and the many Kenyans, 67% who voted for the Constitution. So my call, Victor, is an audit of the Constitution of Kenya. Many things, for example, the affirmative, the 2/3 gender rule, we are still grappling with it over 12 years. Talk about 16 years in the Constitution, but 12 years for some of these things. A Supreme Court leader in the name of the President, David Maraga, issues an advisory to the President to dissolve Parliament. Nothing really happens. Political parties are not interested in 2/3. So many things that still continue to happen that I believe that even as we look at the Constitution, then we need to be getting back and asking ourselves, how far have we come, and what is it that we haven't done well, including the war against corruption, you know, graft issues, which are really the core of, you know, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, leadership and integrity, and then Article 10, national values and principles. So many things that I believe Kenyans wanted to see, but we still grapple, making 2 steps backwards, but maybe 16 or so steps backwards. I mean, 2 steps forwards, and then 16 backwards.
16 is the number, quite literally. Party leader Onyango, looking back 16 years ago, I mean, you can imagine waking up that day and it was a peaceful election. There was that energy across the country that people are yearning for. Let me just speak it from where Kevin has said. People are yearning for that change. We were still reeling from the one-party rule. You know, well, we had gotten into the multi-party democracy, but the face of Moi was still there, and people were not still embracing it, that we are already in democracy, multi-party democracy. So the energy was to get a new constitution, but looking at the number that voted for it, 6 million, that was 67 to 69%, a huge number. Approval. Just take me back 16 years ago.
Well, thank you so much. I think this was the dawn of a long wait. The struggle did not just end with, begin with the presentation of a new constitution or the referendum. The struggle for a new constitution began in earnest in the 80s. We have Matiba, Rubia, Raila going to detention. We have the fight for removal of Section 2A. And back and forth, push and pull. At some point, we want this type of the constitution. At some point, we were changing. So by 2016, my fair assessment of the situation, Kenyans were fatigued. They wanted a new constitution. A new constitution. You remember the Bomas draft had presented itself. Alongside was the Kilifi draft that came to replace it. Kenyans, if I look just even at the structure of government, had moved from a pure presidential system to a pure prime ministerial system. At some point, they were playing with the mongrel of both presidential and prime ministerial system. To the extent that we could say that by 2016, Kenyans wanted a new constitution.
By 2016?
Sorry.
2010.
By 2010, Kenyans wanted a new constitution. The end result is we ended up with a document that was so heavily compromised, it had to take into account the various competing interests, not necessarily the best circumstances, but something
it was compromised at the formation stage.
Yes, I'm looking at a situation for this thing to pass.
Yes.
Now let's bring your idea also. Hata yako tukubali too. Let's put all the ideas so that this thing passes. That is how come you end up with us now and again saying there are things that were put in these constitutions were merely declaratory. There were things in this constitution, as Professor Githu Mugai says, were just poetic. There were things in this constitution that other factions, let me give you an example. For example, bringing the issue of the Qadhi's court into the primary document of the country, some Christians were saying, what of our religions? And the atheists and the traditionalists. But Kenyans wanted a new constitution. For us to get their vote, weka hiyo ndani. For these people, just in case council you don't oppose, to weka hiyo kitu yako ndani. To me, that explains why barely 20 years ago, Kenyans are saying, let us revisit this document. So 2010 was the culmination of a long, strenuous struggle that when it came, very few of us had the guts to say, no, we need a serious constitution devoid of those other things that we are probably not actionable, not constitutional in nature. By the way, this constitution is so comprehensive to the extent that when it was enacted, as a lawyer, I remember that time I was still in active practice, some of the things we were saying, but these ones could have been entertained in acts of parliament, in normal legislations. But if it would make, because some people were saying, if you don't put this, we are not voting it. If you don't put this one in, we are not voting it. So it was a great day, but it is time that we now relooked at it soberly. What has worked, what has not worked, what should be retained as part of the constitutional framework, what should be taken back to ordinary parliamentary legislations.
Wakili, look at it this way. Also just a reflection, before you get into the full discussion now, your reflection. The energy watches was there, and there's something you said. It's like many people voted for this constitution because of the excitement and the emotions.
We wanted a constitution.
You wanted a constitution.
We had fought, my brother. I was a university student when the Matiba and Raila were arrested. And when all these struggle elections came, and we were unable to defeat Moi also. So when this thing came, if it could change our lives, we wanted a constitution. We didn't care. We just didn't want the old.
Yes. Okay. Wakili, 16 years ago.
Thank you, Victor. For me, I think it was a glorious moment for Kenyans. As my seniors already highlighted, that we really wanted a constitution. The backdrop of that was the fact that there had been a lot of issues around the constitution-making process, which had been kick-started by Moi, remember, around 1999, and I think, if I'm not wrong, senior counsel, the great spokesman, I forget the name, was appointed to be one of the leaders at some point. Professor P.L.O. Lumumba at one point was leading the process. At another point, we had Yashpal Guy. So it was a long process. It was never a walk in the park for Kenya, as my senior said, and a couple of other things which had come before, from the one-party rule, from the changing of Kenya into a one-party state.
Yes.
All those things had led to serious dictatorship, and Moi, as he had planned to leave, thought that it's wise to just have a signing off act, that so that people don't say that, you see, after doing all these things, that you need to give something to the people as you leave the stage. A good dancer always dances the best when he leaves. So that is his act of. Then fast forward, Kibaki picks it up and runs with it, running to the 205 referendum, which was a fail. And when it failed, it really gave Kibaki an impetus to actually realize this is not something you can approach casually. Then he had a serious thought, and that led to the election of 2007-2008, which ended up to be very disastrous for the country, and it was our lowest moment as Kenyans. Then fast forward, we have an accord, which was an amendment to the Independence Constitution as we knew it then. That accord is what gave birth to the passing of the constitution. Because now people realize that actually we can have an inclusive government or a government with a different structure.
Yes.
That opened Kenyan people's minds, and now there was an agitation that now let's do this thing. Run-up then also had a lot of issues, how to even caucus. We now brought in people like Kevin Osido, the civil society. We told these guys now, don't even look only in Kenya, just go to South Africa, there is enough money. Go to Canada, go to India, look at what is the best practice in terms of constitution making. Yeah. That is a real awakening that now this thing is needed. We don't have a choice, and we cannot go about it casually. Members of parliament were told, you guys sit around, you can be able to, anybody who mentions something, bring it. Everything, bring it. Let's have everything on the table, and then now let's decide which one is the best draft. And that was, that ended up in coming up with the constitution.
Okay. Kevin, now that your name has been mentioned here, what do you think believe could have been some of the reasons why this constitution has not been fully implemented since it came into force? Not fully, 16 years later.
Very good question, Victor. One of those things is political goodwill. And I agree with Alex that there are leaders who opposed this document by virtue of just paper, black and white, without necessarily focusing on the spirit and the letter. Because the spirit is what does it say, the letter is what is written in text. So there are people who did not believe that it was a moment for us to have a constitution. Even as Mheshimiwa says, we just wanted this thing. And interestingly, some of those sit at the apex of leadership of this country. So political goodwill becomes a very fundamental issue. And that is why, Victor, even as you talk about Vision 2030, Vision 2060, you know, those are just visions. They are mere conversations. They are just talks that we can have. It is a vision. It is a dream. But the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is the foundational aspect of how this country is led. You can't lead a country through a vision. That vision has to find its foundation. Where is it anchored? And the anchoring has to be in the Constitution. So part of why some of these implementation aspects have not seen light of day, in my view, is one, just the mere lack of political goodwill. The leader that we were talking about, the Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga, the President Mwai Kibaki, there's so many people who are behind. Talk about devolution. We are lacking the late Professor Odhiambo Mbai, who actually lost his life. May God rest his soul in eternal peace. Courtesy of Article 11 of our Constitution, devolved government. So devolution is also struggling because the vision, the dream that those crafters had, you know, there is nobody now to pick it up and say, by the way, this is what we meant. Victor, we were in Garissa last week for what is called the Devolution Sensitization Week, and one of those people that, other than myself and now a few others there, Dr. Mutaa Kangu, who is a very accomplished scholar, lawyer, and all that, was being celebrated to also have sat in the committee of, you know, crafting the devolved space. But then at the sidelines of this conversation, I asked him, so where are we having problems to be able to have Kenyans really benefit from the fruits of devolution? And he also cited political goodwill. So one of those main things, and it's political goodwill that is also making it difficult for certain recommendations to be passed, including what the Supreme Court has actually issued. Of course, you don't have to take an advisory, but if it is for the good of the people of the country, why not put together a team to fast-track it? So the second thing, of course, is other cross-cutting issues like debt burden of this country. Some of those things, for them to be implemented the way the Constitution envisioned, will require financial resources. And Kenya and Kenyans, I do not think where we are right now, we are ready and willing to, you know, spend certain resources. The call for referendum or amendment of this constitution has been there ever since I think it was passed. In fact, I think part of the negotiations were that, okay, let's pass it now, but within 6 months to 100 days, we are going to amend it so that we fix it properly.
It's a tedious process.
It is, of course, and it is very, very costly. So that, Victor, I think for me are some of the reasons why we still struggle with implementation and then the review.
Alex,
of
as you also get into that, because I believe there's some constitutional implementation that are still lacking in between them. What do you think are some of the obstacles and why?
Yeah, I think majorly it's a balancing act of if I want to introduce this, how would it go? If you, for example, want to change the constitution and you touch on chapters that require a referendum, the fear most of the time is if I put it on the referendum and then it fails, that becomes a no confidence against me. So if you're in power, you wouldn't want to do that. So that, for me, is the biggest obstacle to any amendment to this constitution, because most of the issues that we're talking about, whether you're talking about devolution, whether you're talking about the structure of government, are things that will require a referendum. And the unfortunate bit is that we have not even audited what we need to change. We keep hearing many suggestions around many things that we need to change. But as a country, we have actually not sat down and said, let's have, whether it's the experts that were involved or others, to audit what is it that has gone well and what is it that has not gone well. Some of those things that we keep referencing, for example, like what my brother was referencing, if you're talking about gender, it's also possible that other people are not interested. So we need to have a conversation about what is it that in this constitution we want to change. And for me, I am on record saying that changing this constitution will be harder than making the constitution making process
Itself?
Yes.
That is means that we'll never fully implement it.
Because,
if that is the case.
Yes, because the reason is, like what Olo was saying, the issue of the Catholic courts. If you try to touch the Catholic courts, the Muslims start saying, now you are throwing us out of the country. If you if you try to remove even one county, because I am a believer, for example, of that 47 is too many. Some of them are not
Kevin,
even viable.
I agree with you. Kevin, do you agree with that?
Let him make his point.
He will agree. So some of the counties, I believe, are completely not viable. And in my view, the 47 was a big mistake. Because then we have, I keep saying we have just created employment bureaus across the country. Some of them, you can't have a PhD holder running some department in some rural place somewhere. And I'm not saying that it's bad to be in a rural place, but there's no value for money in terms of the brains that you have trained for so long. To give someone, like, for example, CEC roads, to run something that they run roads, I don't know for how much budget per year. In 5 years, that person probably, those people are earning more than what the development expenditure that they're having. So there are many things. So the bottom line is that amending this constitution will require, number one, that any president who will want to go at it has to be in the second term. And unless they're not interested in politics.
Let's just take a quick break. I want to refill your cups. Is that okay? Is that okay?
Yeah,
okay, very good. All right, okay. So let's continue with the show now. Before I come to you, Wakili and Weshmiwa, you want to have a minute to rebuttal?
Yeah, I think, Alex, I almost said Mheshimiwa Manyasi.
Which is okay.
That is still all right.
A prayer to him.
Are you running for office?
Yeah?
47, Victor, remember that number was also a compromise. But even as we sit here today in 2026, there are certain parts of this country that are asking for their own counties. Yeah. If you go to Bungoma, the Sabotis during NADCO, I mean the BBI 1, BBI 2, and even the NADCO process, because I've gone through all the reports that the different stakeholders put, there are people in this country who still feel left out in the counties that we have. And they are asking for their own counties. And the Constitution allows that to happen. Of course, taking note of many things, including demarcation of boundaries, population, etc. 47, to me, given what we have experienced as a country, is a fair number, give and take. However, we must implement devolution, as it were, in the same manner that it was actually envisaged. And that is what I believe that Alex is referring to, that Kenyans still do not feel the fruits of devolution in the manner that, of course, there are counties that have done very well, there are lots of counties that are still struggling, especially from human resource aspects, job opportunities for many people.
Yes.
But Victor, as County Governance Watch, together with other stakeholders, we've done an analysis of what it would cost to implement devolution in this country over 5 years, which is a term of a government. If you look at the budgets that counties get today, it is a very small budget. But most of the monies that still stays at the national government is money that is supposed to go to counties. We were with Mheshimiwa Duale in Garissa, and some of us asked him, why is it so difficult to fully devolve health? Because the Constitution has fully devolved health under Schedule 4. But if you look at the budgets that are still held by national government on just one area called health, is money that if you take to counties, it will be enough for them to implement health to the satisfaction of citizens. He mentioned roads. The Constitution has classified roads, A, B, C, D, and E. And we know national government, regional highways, national highways, and boundary roads. Why are certain national government agencies meddling in county roads? Road C, and he was a speaker of a county assembly of Kisumu. He knows how that classification has been done. TA, the transition authority, the body that, that saw the transition between local government to county governments, what we have, gave us a clear report that, Victor, if we just took time to go through it, there should be no reason why devolution should be a problem. So in my view, the numbers are okay. We just need to look at what we are doing, who is doing what, fully devolve the functions, and then release the resources to counties. But as I finish on that, our counties has a potential. Normally, we have discussed what is called on-source revenue here, severally. They have more than 131 streams, sources of revenue for counties. Counties are not fully exploiting those revenues, and that is why this over-reliance and over-dependence.
So should we have more counties, or should they be reduced?
47 is okay. If reduced, okay. It's going to be antagonistic. I don't know the mechanisms of reducing, but we can sustain what we have. However, fix what needs to be fixed to make counties deliver.
Okay. Mheshimiwa, I mean, look at some of the provisions, the constitutional provisions that are still inadequately enacted and fully implemented. Why do you think they remain so?
My position remains and will be the same. The very nature of this constitution makes it almost impossible to implement fully. It was hailed as one of the most modern and pragmatic constitutions of our time when enacted. But a keen assessment of that phrase was such that everybody praised and acclaimed what concerned them in the constitution that was enacted. So the human rights movement were very happy because this thing was encompassed all the aspects of human rights that were missing in the other constitution. When you looked at the gender specialists and the gender activists, the women had been empowered. We had put them in parliament. We made a provision for them. At the end of the day, they should be 30%, etc., etc. The Muslims were happy. They were at the apex of legislative agenda. But what document were we having? A mongrel of a document in the name of a constitution. Should I proceed?
Yeah.
A mongrel of a document in the name of a constitution that if you now wanted to implement it to the fullest, one, you will get into almost self-contradictions. For instance, if we were to do even the gender issue alone, it has got financial implications that are very heavy, given the level of development of this country, for instance. If we look at the aspect of devolution, which for my party as FOP, we have always said that we will be a party that will ensure devolution works.
Yeah.
The biggest threat to devolution, in my view, is not the number of the counties. The problems are myriad, but key amongst them is that the state organs that are supposed to supervise prudent use of resources are either overwhelmed, compromised, or do not know what to do. So what we devolved was corruption. Those governors and their tribesmen or kinsmen are not stealing from the counties, they are looting. To the extent that the devolution that was meant to help Mwananchi down there has ended up in a situation that he ends up being oppressed. Maybe, Kevin, you may not know, but Mwananchi himself down is now saying, afadhali you take the health to the national government. Because where they were even given the little resources, they're just running amok. At some point, I wanted even to blame institutions like EACC. But I also want to look at their capacity to look at all these 47 counties, 10 ministries each or departments each. There's a chance that they will be overwhelmed. So, going forward, my view is, by its very nature, this constitution calls for a serious review, but who will be bold enough to say, let us bite the bullet? I'm looking at a man in his second term who says, I want to leave a legacy, and I don't care.
Okay.
Failing that, we are stuck, even for 100 years with this document.
Okay. I mean, look at the accountability and, you know, governance and accountability, Wakili. Because now that calls for accountability when you look at it, because when it comes to governance, that constitution is what we have right now. There's nothing else. But you talked about corruption, devolution. Now let's talk about the governance and accountability, because at the end of the day, it's going to be the only gear that is going to push this country forward. Go ahead.
Thank you, Victor. I think you've come to a very important point, which it's like you read my mind. There are independent offices which have been put in place in that particular constitution. Hardly will you even know who is running them right now, because they have been badly overrun. They either don't know what they're doing, or they're just trying to find, they are trying to survive because of financial, being staffed financially. And that in itself is a process of trying to undermine the constitution, because these independent officers, some of them have even allowed that even some mere acts of parliament have come in to impede their working. And that in itself is quite unfortunate as Kenyans, and I think we need to be out there standing to fight for these people, because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing. If we can be able to talk governance, the constitution itself is self-enabling and quite robust in a manner that it even put in place circumstances or mechanisms of enabling its smooth implementation. But as we have said all here, is that this has got to happen with a lot of political goodwill. That political goodwill starts with Parliament, because Parliament allocates resources. Parliament in itself does not seem to know what it's supposed to be doing. It's supposed to actually be checking all these organizations. What do they do instead? They go there and then they just ask some few questions. They bring the cameras, they shout a lot. But at the end of the day, the situation is not sorted. So first, among all the issues we have is the breakdown of our parliament. Our judiciary was doing very well in terms of coming in as a neutral arbiter to ensure.
You said was doing very well?
Was, yes. Unfortunately, that's the word I've got to use. But I mean, just last week and the week before, you saw lawyers themselves unite unanimously to boycott some courts. What does that tell you? If what was that Chinua Achebe saying, that if the alligator comes from the water and tells you that Mr. Crocodile is sick, you will never doubt. But when you see lawyers demonstrating against their fellow lawyers who are in the bench, that tells you we have a problem. So that in itself, our constitution has been breaking down bit by bit, even the implementable clauses which were supposed to be there and which are supposed to be giving rise to good governance. When that happens, then it's a matter of time, Victor. And I pray that 2027 comes in too fast, we have an election and proceed to the next term before things fall apart. Because if we go into this election with a judiciary which will have lost its credibility with the speed which it's losing, then we're going to have another big problem. Our parliament in itself, we pray that in 2027, we are seeing people with the better brains, people with enough courage, people with the sound understanding of our constitution, who can actually put their foot down and actually have the goodwill so that they can be able to check the executive, because those are the vanguards of our constitution in terms of good governance. But if they are asleep or been compromised, then we will not be talking about
this question goes to all of you. Then it means, based on what you've said, there are some institutions that are actually failing. Starting with you, Manyasi, do you think there are some reforms that we need to strengthen some of these institutions to give them more powers when it comes to oversighting the institutions? Do we have to give them some reforms to be given to them?
So some people have made those suggestions around reforms within the different institutions, but let's also look at it from this point. We have the three arms of government, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. But we have a fourth one, which is the independent constitutional bodies, which are supposed to be supporting Mwananchi in terms of ensuring that these other three do not misbehave. But if you look at it keenly, you will see that the balance, the people who created this constitution tried to make it a bit balanced by ensuring that there are checks so that the judiciary can check, the executive can also check their other arms. But the constitutional commissions especially are supposed to be key in safeguarding Mwananchi's interest.
Okay.
However,
can I just sort of your mic?
Okay. I think, Kevin, you can just pick it up from there.
Yeah, very important, and because somewhere I also help people understand the Constitution. It's called civic and political education. When you go to chapter 15, Victor, we have what is called commissions and independent offices, and there are so many of them. What I think, or rather what I believe is the problem, in my view, are three things. And Gibson has talked to the financing aspect. So the role of Parliament in ensuring that these institutions are properly funded and that the monies that they ask for are appropriated effectively, because that is part of why they cannot be able to do their work. So if you talk to EACC, for example, yes, they have regional offices in about a quarter or so of the country. They have around 8 or 9 regional offices in the 8 former provinces that we had before. But the infrastructure to be able to engage with citizens is not there. Look at the controller of budget, the auditor general, accountability and governance institutions that are supposed to be properly funded, so that you have people headhunting, independent officers of commissions and institutions that are supposed to be done. That's the first thing. So financing aspect and giving the commissions and these institutions the fit to work. Victor, the second thing is a review of the powers. So the reforms that we are talking about. Look at an institution like NCIC. It's an independent commission. But you have politicians spewing hate across the country, people talking very ill and bad, ugly, and you sometimes as a parent wonder, should we be watching our televisions, those news highlights with our children, because you cannot believe. But that is the institution that was put in place post 2008, 2007, 2009 in the Constitution to help us know how to live cohesively with each other. But the Commission doesn't have teeth to bite. So you summon people, you tell them, I will fine you $1 million.
Yeah, that's the reason why I ask, do we need to have some reforms? Because some of these oversight institutions need, for example, EACC, they have been talking about prosecutorial powers.
Yeah.
They'll say, Mheshimiwa Onyango said this and that, we'll only investigate and leave it at that.
Yeah.
So do we need to give them more powers, for example, such institutions?
So if you allow me to just finish up my point. Yeah.
Right.
So the second thing, therefore, is those reforms. The institutions need to be given what they require. If NCIC needs powers to be able to arrest and ensure that people do the right thing, give it to them. And I am aware that for NCIC, there is actually an amendment in the Senate, which is supposed to ensure that they have powers to arrest and also prosecute. But even as we talk about prosecution, there is an independent institution called the Directorate of Public Prosecutions. The third thing we need to see is these institutions working together, Victor, so that they're able to have a multi-sectoral platform where the heads of all these institutions, including the IG of police, all of them sit together and decipher and agree on what needs to happen. But then lastly is how the appointments of commissioners are done. Because that also is a public trust dent. Because people sometimes imagine that you only become a commissioner for example, IEBC, because you know somebody in the political arena. If Mheshimiwa Onyango Lo is a party leader of FOPP, then I have to know him. to be given a commission job, you know, and then I can protect his interests when the elections come. You go to NCIC, the same thing is happening. You go to almost all these commissions, Kenyans have been made to believe that you must know somebody for you to be properly vetted by parliament, and then you're appointed, which I think is a big public dent to the independence of these institutions as well.
I think for fairness, his mic was off. Can I?
Yeah.
Maybe you can finish your point. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was trying to say that the challenges that we encounter today, some of them are out of... first, I honestly believe that we made our constitution feel very good, quote unquote, but which lives ahead of us in the sense that if you look at the number of institutions, for example, and the budgets that Osido is referring to that is required to run them, if you were to adequately resource all the institutions that we have, I am not sure we'll be able to do that. But secondly, on an aspect like the counties, for example, I still believe that the challenges of the counties, if you look at some counties having as high as 60% recurrent expenditure, that means that, and most of those will be because you have 10, how many CECs counties have? 10 to 12?
Yeah, 10 to 12.
What are 12 CECs doing in a county? Honestly, like, what are they doing? Like,
How many
you
should
have
they be?
3. You should have a maximum of 3 and 6 chief officers. So fundamentally, we have a problem even with SRC. We have a problem with the Senate. Some of these things we need to deliberately debate them and say, for example, what is the size of cabinet you require at a county? Why would Vihiga have 12 CCs? What resources do they have? What will they be doing in the office Monday to Friday? So we need to interrogate. Probably in Nairobi it can make sense. But even in Nairobi, there are times when you find chief officers being too many. And yet Nairobi almost has a budget equal to, I think, 6 or 7 counties combined. So that tells you that we have a fundamental problem in terms of the way, the architecture of what we have allowed. We need to rein in on some of these entities. There are so many constitutional commissions in Kenya today that should have 2 commissioners, honestly. Like, literally, you have a CEC, I mean, you have a chief officer, the CEO, you have staff who are technical staff. Why are you having 10 commissioners? Doing what? Like, in my view, there are so many things that have gone wrong in terms of how we have made our institutions. And we need to rethink the numbers so that we can make the executive a very lean system that can then be able to allow more resources to run the development of the country.
I'll come back to that question of how we can make more counties more accountable and actually more productive to that question. But you wanted to say something to this effect, the reforms to these institutions.
I don't actually want to speak specifically to the reforms to this institution.
Go ahead.
But rather to this constitution.
Okay.
I said and I reiterate that this constitution has got some of the best provisions with the way modern constitutionalism is involved. But it has got also certain provisions or articles that are completely outdated or do not belong to the constitutional framework. As such, we have a mongrel, but nobody is bold enough to say that what we have is not a good constitution in its entirety. Number one, are we having a unitary system as a country, or are we having a federal system? Are we having a confederacy, or what kind of government are we having? Are we having a presidential system or a prime ministerial system? Have you ever imagined for once, if the president won elections and he had very few members of parliament, how would he govern the country? So that's why I'm saying first we have a mongrel of a document, but because everybody picks what works for him, he praises it, and he doesn't want to lose that one. Now, let me take you to the next level. Maybe some of our viewers do not know that there are countries without a written constitution that work perfectly well.
Yeah. For example?
What do they do? The UK.
Yes.
They have quite a number of documents they call the Magna Carta. What do they do differently, or what do these countries, and even those with written constitutions, but that are working, do differently? Number one, the value system of the citizenship is very important. Those of us who are lawyers would tell you that we were taught that the spirit is sometimes even more important than the word. What values are you holding as an individual? Are you a corrupt man? Are you a man who is transparent, accountable, believe in consultation? Once you answer that aspect of the value system of a society, then even with the worst document or no document as a constitution, you can still offer your people great, inspiring, and self-achieving leadership.
Because of the values.
Value system that you as a leader have. I've always maintained this, that if you want to fight corruption in this country, we don't even need all those many institutions. You just need to tame the greed of the president alone. Let me tell you, if I am the president, for instance, and I do not allow corruption in my government, starting as a person, I'm not talking of a specific president, I'm not going there. Tame the greed of the presidency.
Okay.
Let me put it that way, so for us to be comfortable. You can believe no minister of mine would dare, and therefore no PS would dare, and therefore the people under them would not dare, just by that alone. Now, the second terrible thing that has happened to our country is what has cursorily been mentioned by everybody who wants power. But once they get into power, they do the same: state capture. What is state capture? State capture is a situation where institutions of governance are under the grip of the executive so that it executes the whims and wishes of the executive. What that has amounted to, when we cry about the judiciary, for instance, the problem in the judiciary are quite a number. There's corruption which lawyers are fighting for and fighting them. And we are saying this is not the judiciary we envisaged. But there are also situations, go there to fight the government. You will never win. Chances are you will not win because a phone call and they'll do what they're being told.
You know, we are talking about institutions, we're talking about reforms, and some of the things that should be made to make it watertight.
Yes.
But there is one person we are forgetting, the Wanjiku.
That's what, you remember where I started? The value system of the citizenship first will determine the kind of people they produce as their leaders. So it does not just hold at the leadership alone.
Is Wanjiku, who is the primary custodian of this constitution feels it?
Yes.
That's the question.
I agree with you. And you know, we are as good as the leaders we produce. Or the leaders we produce are a product of our society. So the value system we have as a people is very, very important, number one. Number two, those we put in power, the aspect of I must capture the state organs first so that nobody audits me, nobody counters me, boils down to what Kevin was saying. How are we appointing the custodians of these institutions, commissions, and state corporations? Should we review it? More often than not, they are appointed on, this is someone I know, or we do tribal balancing, or someone paid something to get a position. So there's a need to review how we end up with these appointments. There's this thing that I dread when you talk of giving EACC prosecutorial powers. My friend, I've been a victim of those people. Don't retain that thing where it is. They will use it to collect money left, right, and center and prosecute innocent and guilty people.
Okay. I wanted to make a statement. But it's okay. I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
I'll leave it at that.
Don't leave that to the ODPP. At least you have someone else to review.
Then it would mean if they're given those powers, they would work. They would buy it.
It will be hell because they will use it to collect taxes from people.
Okay. Wakili, I mean, look at it this way. I want to come back to the judiciary because Wanjiku depends on judiciary when things get thick. But sometimes we feel like the judiciary is not fully... He's talked about state capture, and just last week you had some, can I call it go-slow or something? A protest. So what are some of the independent... Okay, how can you safeguard the judiciary?
The best thing is what my learned sin is already highlighting, that we need to also be very careful in terms of the people we put in office and how we put them, because the process determines the end goal. Some of the things the value basis which we rely on currently are actually now have gone to the lowest. I mean, very often nowadays, when we started off, the judges we had were very sound people. I mean, even the process, you could believe that these people are able and capable of doing the job that they have. But nowadays, I mean, you see even the person who was failed in the interviews, who is even become a meme, ends up becoming a judge. How that becomes the case, everybody wonders. And I mean, so the ordinary people out there could not be able to know, but as lawyers, we know among ourselves that if somebody fails in an interview, could not be able to answer basic questions, and then you see them being a judge, then you wonder, should I be appearing before this one? Because, I mean, it's the lowest of the people, but then they end up because of, I don't know, which process they use, I don't know. So those are some of the questions we need to ask. And then, of course, the results is out there to actually demonstrate that that was a wrong pick. That is why, as lawyers, we've decided, I mean, these guys are our peers. We need to just decide to, if things have been, we need to call them out, so that we can have order and sobriety in the judiciary. Because the judiciary is so key in implementation of the Constitution. Some of the things we also look at is this aspect of regional balancing. You find that provided my brother Kevin maybe comes from a little-known society, that is a qualification to be in a national office, just because his constituency is not well represented or community. We need to actually rethink that philosophy. Of course, it's a good philosophy, but we need to rethink it, how we implement that. It's a good question you asked earlier, Wanjiku. Wanjiku and the issues of, first, Wanjiku was not properly sensitized. I like what Kevin is doing, because he's going around trying to sensitize Wanjiku to know what the Constitution is actually talking about. When we were passing the Constitution, people say, I mean, if so-and-so has read, then it's good for me. You see, that is the disadvantage. There was also another aspect which my brother Manyasi said, that at some point we had issues whereby you could ensure that, I mean, you affiliated to these people are good people, these are the bad people. Okay. Not necessarily, but the process has indeed changed in the long run.
Just a minute, we are good people. And because we are good people, just a break.
could you allow me finish, Victor? Yes, I know that.
I'll circle back. I'm a good man.
I know, yeah.
Okay, stay with us. All right. Right, welcome back. Okay, now to the final tale of this discussion. I'm a good man, I promised. So, Wakili, back to you.
Thank you, Victor.
Go ahead.
I mean, I can attest you're a good man. But what I was saying is the aspect of the civic education, which needed to have been done. At some point, I remember during, I think I was in school, and the very initial process, when the first draft came, which was defeated in 2005, there was nobody, or there was no budget to do civic education before Kenyans could be able to know what exactly they were going to vote for in the referendum. And teachers who were now even in the villages, were the educated folks, were actually told, don't take that opportunity to start doing civic education. And you see, the people were anxious. What are we voting for? Some rumors were going left, right, and center, which even our traditional societies had challenges with, and they needed clarification upon. But the state failed the Kenyans by ensuring, and I think there's been a very deliberate process to ensure that the Constitution is actually not well understood by Kenyans. And I have very good reasons to say as such. I think Kevin will agree. I can see he's nodding. So that is the first process. Because if we can be able to understand that, then we know where the problem or where the rain started meeting us. Then the other aspect is the issue of values. Which values do we eschew as Kenyans? We've talked of constitutions, even in some countries without constitutions, but they share some common value base. Like the UK, they have the monarchy, which really overlooks everything, even any sort of government. Even if they do away with the government, they still have the monarchy, which is a system which they've believed in for ages, for over 800 or 1,000 years. So that in itself gives kind of a straightforward way of doing things. There's a country called, I think, Kuwait, which has a 26-page constitution. And it's running well. That's one of its currency is the biggest in the world, even beating the US dollar. And that tells you a lot, that constitution really is not in the black and white letters, it's about the spirit. And where do you draw the spirit? It's from the value base. Do you have something which you all believe in? If we all believe in a common thing, there will be no need to have a very comprehensive constitution, because we spew our spirit from what our value base is. So as Kenya, we are so fragile. I would want to believe, sometimes I tell people, that if we took our constitution and give it to Tanzania, and then maybe change the spirit of their leaders, Tanzania will do very well, because they have a common spirit. At independence, they first ensured that their spirit is one. They believe in some common values, which as Kenyans we don't. So the only problem actually in Tanzania is about the leadership who are overbearing. But if we had some sort of, they would do very well. But now look at Kenya. Kenya, the way my brother seniors has already highlighted, we seem to be saying, everybody come, bring everybody, and then now we start dividing it out. That in itself shows we do not have a value system which we believe, all of us. We suspect each other so much that we cannot be able to trust somebody. So that even now, once we are categorized, then we pick our very best thief and put him forth and say he's our thief. So put him there because he's entitled. Well, we're not entitled because he's what? And that in itself leads to a very wrong process, and that process, of course, leads to picking of leaders. And these leaders is from the independent officers to the very core of it of governance, that is the judiciary, that is the executive, and then that is the parliament. We shouldn't expect different results from that particular process.
You talked of values, and you talked of Tanzania. You know, Tanzania has got more sub-tribes than us, 120. But you'll rarely hear about them. You know, the big ones, the Chagas, the Nyamwezis, and the Sukumas, you'll never hear somebody say, I'm a Chaga also. But, we are Tanzanians.
But Tanzanians have also one thing in common.
The
Chagas are technically the Kikuyus of Tanzania.
But you never hear them.
But Tanzanians have made sure that the Chagas never get to power. That's a difference.
That's a discussion for another day.
It's fine.
As we come to a close, I want to ask all of you randomly, look at a stronger democracy. What does a stronger democracy look to you in the next decade, Manyasi, Kenya? A stronger democracy. How does it look? Just give me a picture how it looks like.
So I'll just continue from what I had said about the Chagas and why I want to say that.
Allow him make his point.
Okay.
And the democracy part. There's no democracy in Kenya minus resources. And I was telling Osido when we were walking in, and something that I was telling him I'm really wrong when it comes to these things. The hula baloo you're hearing in Kenya today, once it comes to where it means the road, it will be about resources. And it will be about who has, number one, the numbers, and who has the money. Even how Rigiji ended up being William Ruto's deputy, it was not about Rigiji being the most competent. Everybody wanted Kindiki to be deputy president, but Kindiki was broke, literally.
Not really.
So, not broke in that sense, but broke in terms of...
We can't authenticate that.
But broke in terms of the resources that were required to run a presidential election. So when it comes to democracy, the Sifunas of this world and others, I know I'm saying very controversial things, but wait and see. The Sifunas of this world and others, when it comes now the discussion about who is going to run against William Ruto, it will boil down to who are the businessmen, who are the guys with the resources. You will see a very different conversation in the next 8 months or so. So the democracy aspect, when to ask, first of all, I don't trust the Kenyan voter. That's another controversial statement. And I have said that many times. The Kenyan voter is one that will change his mind very quickly, depending on the circumstances, and especially at the influence of resources. I know I come from a constituency somewhere, and I have attempted to even run for electoral office. So I know what I'm saying. The Kenyan voter, by the time we get to June of next year, the songs that will be across this country, you'll be shocked. by how Kenyans will be thinking and how the voter will be thinking. So the issue of democracy, in my view, and that's also partly why even the new constitution we are talking about and the motions that came with the new constitution, it had nothing to do with democracy. It had everything to do with what Olo was saying. I am a Muslim and there's a Catholic court. Is that democracy? That's why Osido was talking about Mount Elgon, for example. They have always said the Bukusus are too many, who are us. Those guys, we need to have our own county. Is that democracy? So as we zero down to the issue of democracy and how this country needs to move forward, I like what Wakili was saying. What fiber of society are we?
Yeah.
It's about me. It's very capitalistic in terms of how we think. Kenyans today, you will find someone has been involved in an accident, and the first thing they will do is pick his phone. That is the society that we are. So we need to be very clear about what kind of society we are. It's man eat man society. We compromise anything at the expense. You will go to a garage today, someone will give you brake pads that will go and kill you and charge you for the grade 1. What kind of society have we become? So, in my view, in Kenya, democracy does not exist. Watch this space. By June next year, that's when you will know that democracy does not exist in Kenya. That's why Raila never became president. He died.
Okay. Alex. Okay. Kevin, the next decade.
Yeah, my understanding of Kenya's democracy borders on a path that the president has chosen to follow, and is calling it Kenya Vision 2060. I like the path, but I have a few issues, because this is supposed to uptake from Vision 2030, but have we audited the democratic tenets and principles of Kenya around Vision 2030? So much such that if you look at a pillar within Vision 2030 called the social pillar, Victor, within social pillar is where Chapter 6, Leadership and Integrity, and Article 10, National Values and Principles fall. Those things that are troubling Mheshimiwa Manyasi here. What is the value system of the Kenyan society? I remember that many things happened. I remember being a program officer at one of the premier youth organizations in this country, 2008, there about 2009, 2010. And we went to schools across this country talking about the value system of Kenya, many things. When Mheshimiwa Raila Amolo Odinga became the prime minister, we asked him to launch the young value system of Kenya. As we speak right now, the NCIC picked up that program into what is called the Amani Clubs. Now within schools, we have schools now voting for their president, and there are mentors taking them through the value system of Kenya.
Yeah.
Who is a leader? What is the service delivery of a leader? How do you become a leader? Must you bribe? You know, those are the value systems. But if you look at the graduation, the transition system, Victor, that you become a president in your local primary school, but for you to be a president, now you're asking me 10 years in that graduation that you must bribe people to vote for you, and that you go to Olkalao, and sometimes even as much bribe as you give, sometimes do not get you what you're looking for. It's a conversation that we must have, which is why I believe that the president has begun a very good transition to be talking about Vision 2060. But does it respond to the constitutional tenets of democracy that we are asking? So the issues like the rule of law, are we respecting the rule of law? Issues like public participation. Are Kenyans being consulted on critical issues, National Infrastructure Fund, the issues around JKIA? We have the budget processes, finance bill, etc. Are Kenyans being consulted effectively? You talk about access to information, Chapter 35 of our Constitution, Article 35, Victor. How are we ensuring that Kenyans are empowered because of that information? So yes, we are making strides, but we still have to get back to the bottom of the crust of the foundation, which is really the constitutional question that we are asking today.
I will ask you this, Mheshimiwa. Look at it this way. If there is one part of Constitution should be amended, which one would you want to be amended?
Really,
as you also answered the same question I asked.
Okay, thank you. But let me first answer this question because it's very important to me. There's this West African writer, Chinua Achebe, in his book, The Anthills of the Savannah, asks a very pertinent question that is the basis of our discussion today. What is wrong with Nigeria? That is his question. And he says, there's nothing wrong with the water of Nigeria, nothing wrong with the air we breathe, nothing wrong with our women or our children. Everything is wrong with the leadership. What am I talking about? Kenya's situation, everything is wrong with the leadership. And touch it to what Alex and Kevin and Wakili have been saying here. The value system. What do our leaders, what are the values in their lives? What do they stand for? I've seen the political parties act trying to KY it that parties should be formed on the basis of ideologies, so that we would know what you stand for before we elect you and you implement on the basis of those ideologies. How do you explain? I don't want to start areas that are very controversial. How do you explain Kibaki, who has been a vice president of KANU for over 15 years, waking up to fight KANU, and the next day is joining with Raila, and the third day is joining again with Ruto, and then he leaves to Uhuru. And then the paragon of democracy, Raila, who has been detained by this dictator, wakes up and the next day, that is the man he wants to work with. Kutoka huko amewacha huyo hafanyi kazi vizuri. Next is now working with Kibaki, who was also in that government. Thirdly, now him is working with Uhuru, he works with Ruto, and Ruto the other day is working with Uhuru. They have good buddies. Within no time, hapana, this is the wrong person. What do our leaders believe in?
Yeah.
What are the values they have that we should follow them for? When I walked in here, you asked me why my party was not part of that coalition. And I told you, one, we are not yet complete with the journey. But most importantly, are we forming coalitions for coalition's sake? Is it about just winning elections?
Okay.
Or are there greater objectives than just winning an election or forming a government? To me, the greater objective is the goodness of mankind and the welfare of Kenyans should be the ultimate objective, and it will be formed when we know what our leaders stand for before we elect them. If there was anything I was to say about this constitution, is that we need a constitution that expresses the intention and desire of Kenyans. Look at the whole thing and set it aside.
Wakili, wamekula time yako, so you have 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
Which is okay. Go ahead.
Anyway, Victor, I mean, I will still go back to the value system. If we fix our values and the way we even put people in office, then that is very key. We will have gotten a panacea on a platform on which we can be able to stand and be able to have the right leaders in office. These leaders, of course, what we do, once we elect even very good people, once they go to that house in the name of parliament, their ideology changes, the value system changes, because it becomes a club. That house is a club. Unless we dismantle the club, we will never get any good leader that we can be able to say, these are our leaders.
You've done 30 seconds exactly. You are a good man.
Yes, I'm a good man.
Thank you very much. Gibson Gesore, Advocate of the High Court, thank you so much for joining us, as well as Onyangolo, who is a party leader of the Freedom and Opportunity Party, POP. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And of course, Alex Manyasi, who is the Policy Engagement Manager at APHRC, and of course, Kevo Osida, who is Executive Director of the County Governor's Watch. Let's take a break. GMK continues after this break. Stay with us.